Okay. All right, it's connecting to YouTube and it's live now. Okay. And there's a little bit of a delay because the YouTube servers have been a little bit slow the last couple days. So I'm just verifying that the stream is going out and that it did, in fact, connect to the right stream. And it did. So, all right, we are live and we are connected to the correct stream. I would just like to say hi to the viewers. Thanks for dialing in. Just a little bit of background. There's NFT DAO running on Project Catalyst, and the gentlemen who are here today were working very hard on this project, and there were some disagreements, maybe some difference in perspectives, different approaches. So they decided to come together here on the YouTube channel and provide their insight as to what happened. We talked about it before we got started here. And so basically what we're going to do is for the four gentlemen who are here, each person is going to get 5 minutes, and then each person is going to take turns. And what they're going to say is what their role is, what went right and what went wrong with the NFT DAO. No one's going to interrupt. No one's going to question their perspective and their opinion that they're providing. And then each person will take turns. That'll be 5 minutes each. Then we'll have 10 minutes of discussion, followed by a few minutes of what you would like to see happen going forward, right? What would you see to help? What would you like to see to help resolve this? And Phillip has agreed to go first. So Phillip, would you like to go ahead and tell us what is your role, what went right, and what went wrong? Please, 5 minutes.
All right. Yeah, so I am NFT DAO's marketing lead. I've taken over Tyler Wales' position. I was voted in. So essentially, NFT DAO is a Catalyst project that received funding from Fund 3. And we are trying to build a framework similar to like Shopify for NFT marketplaces. That's what it is in a nutshell. Now, what we got right so far was we built a community from scratch organically. Rich Copshow was initially the one who started this idea, and slowly but surely other community members started to come in to add their input and their time and effort to it. So we've built a community from scratch. We've started to build up a customer base that we need to service, that we are continually trying to find ways to improve upon how to service their needs. And we are need to work on how we communicate amongst each other, because that's the main issue that we had. Was there's different things called holons that we utilize that term. Rich Scopshow introduced that to us. And essentially, a holon is an entity, like a part that pretty much communicates independently, but it's easy, that's able to freely move among other parts. Think of like the human body, like the heart and stomach. So I'm part of the marketing holon, but I have the ability to move on other holons, like listen into the dev meetings, or let's say the governance meetings, and so on and so forth. The thing is that we didn't really do that. We didn't understand what was going on. We were kind of stuck in our own silo. So with communication flow, it was seriously lacking. And that's the main thing that I think that we needed to improve on. And we've been improving on that ever since then. And I think the recent departures was due to the fact that having other outside influences coming in. I think the gentlemen, I can't speak on their behalf. The main reason why I think they left was because of the Occam possibility of collaborating with us, and they feel that their values are not aligned with NFT DAO's values. And apparently, from Cardano Foundation themselves, they said that there's nothing wrong with the way that Occam has operated thus far. So we didn't see an issue of just talking to them, just entertaining the conversation. And as of right now, we have not pursued anything with Occam. We're currently working independently, but we have some great news coming out and in the coming weeks that we will present to the entire community. And we are continuing moving forward with NFT DAO despite all the controversy. So that's what I pretty much have to say about that.
Okay, you've only used 3 of your 5 minutes, which is fine. Is there anything you'd like to say about specifically the what went wrong? You mentioned the communications. What was
Yes,
wrong? What was wrong with the communications, and was there a problem with the holons? And if you want to explain more on that, you still have 2 minutes.
I think there is a problem with the communication flow. It's because people have a misunderstanding of what Rich's role is because there's a lot of grievances towards Rich. They think that he's making decisions unilaterally, and I think that people don't really understand how this whole holonic structure is working because the way that it was structured from the beginning is that the leads, like the originators, such as Troy, Tyler Wales, now it's me taking over, and I believe I might be missing another member. See, communication flow is that we didn't pretty much um, show people that hey, we're making decisions as leads, not as just a unilateral decision. And Tyler Wales and Rich were the ones who were speaking with Occamfy, just trying to see if there's any way to have any sort of collaboration because building out this boxcar framework is quite difficult given the fact that the resources and time it would take to do it and the Catalyst funding only provides you just a small amount of funds to get a project started and to consistently put out proposals and have the chance of not having the chance to be funded was obviously a potential danger for NFT DAO, but now we're in a position where we don't really have to worry about something like that coming into fruition, like a problem. We can do this ourselves. But yes, that's what I pretty much have to say about that. And the recent attacks and like for instance the Twitter posts and anonymous accounts, attacking me or attacking Rich. It's just uncalled for. I don't think any of the gentlemen who are on this call right now participated because these men right here have shown that they're quite brave and just to speak out right now. So I admire them for doing that and just give their position. But yeah, that's how I see about that. The Cardano space doesn't have any room for people who want to hide behind troll accounts and call me Rich's pet monkey. And we know the account in question has recently not been found, but I don't know.
Okay, and that's time. That was 5 minutes. Thanks for that. Thanks, Phillip. And yeah,
Yeah,
I don't think there's any room for that kind of name calling. So
yeah.
next we were going to have Dan was going to go next, right? And then Steven and then Rich. So Dan, are you ready to go? You ready to
Yeah,
go?
sure. Thanks,
All
Rick.
right. So Dan is up.
Yeah, thanks, Philip. For me, how I got into NFT DAO was quite emotional. I was very excited, very happy when I found the proposal because I was about to write a proposal of my own for a passion project of mine that I'm actually now following up on again. But it had to do with NFTs, and I saw NFT DAO, and I saw the proposal accumulating or wanting to have an umbrella across different kind of proposals that all aim towards a similar direction. And it made sense to me to call it NFT DAO because that's what it is, a DAO to structure an NFT framework for Cardano. So I was under the impression I'm going in there because the proposal was very well written and sounded very professional, that there is some kind of basic structure, some kind of workflow, or at least a code of conduct, the basic open source materials that you find when someone kicks off a project. And I was embraced with open arms because of my business analyst background. I was asked to help out with the business cases, writing the user stories. So that's what I did at first in the first 2 days or something. And then I found out that this basic structure, how a DAO actually works and communicates, is not there. And so I pivoted into the governance holon to try and see if we can somehow build this up in parallel while we're also building a community and a product, which is a bit insane. But I thought, well, why not give it a try? And it was at first, well, it was very exciting and very rewarding also because I met amazing people. I met Steven and I met Tyler, for example, which still I'm working with now as of today on the other project. So those were the upsides. There was a lot of yeah, stimulating discussions also in the governance hold on. And in the end, it didn't lead anywhere because we couldn't, somehow the community was also growing constantly, and we couldn't decide, or we couldn't reach consensus over a common goal and a vision where we actually want to be in, let's say, a year or two. And the vision divided very, very fast. We couldn't create those basic documents like a team charter, like finish even the code of conduct. And at that point, it was just, I think, too late. And then the OccamFi situation emerged. I did very preliminary due diligence, and after a couple of days, Stephen released his OccamFi report. Also in the wake, creating the QA DAO on Catalyst, which also helped other projects a lot, mine and different ones as well. And yeah, that's when I decided, okay, if the NFT DAO decides to go down this road, which is quite against what I think how a DAO should work like or should establish itself, then I will take my leave. And that's what I did. And the token, I was in charge in the end of the token, the contribution reward token. We had a basic draft of it, but the missing piece was the common goal where the base layer could be geared towards. Because if we don't have a common goal where we could measure value against, then yeah, it's not possible to design a token without this basic element. And that's when I left. So yeah. As I said, a lot of it, what went right is the many great people were brought together, and great projects have emerged out of it, and amazing discussions were had, new friends I've won. But the communication breakdown and the siloing and the whole endeavor of, in retrospect, it seems a bit like the DAO term was just used as a marketing tool, which I know for a fact that that's not what consciously happened, because it was later introduced by Troy and Tyler. But for me, it's the only probable and possible solution if you start an open source project in that manner in the Catalyst community, that it will start as a DAO. So yeah.
Okay, understood.
I think that's it from me.
And that was 5 minutes. Thank you for that, Dan, and well said. So let's next go to Stephen.
Yeah,
so
thank
Stephen,
you.
Tell us what you think.
Thank you, Rick. I'm Stephen Whittinstall. My name on Discord is Stephen.Rowing. I joined NFT DAO in early March 2002, and I started building documentation repositories in early March, and an NFT DAO Git book, which from the 17th of March to provide a reference history for the genesis of NFT DAO. And I recorded meetings, research, and Discord posts. And on the 30th of March, just prior to NFT DAO receiving funding, I joined the governance group dubbed Holon and created the NFT DAO Governance Holon repository to store, develop and track and discuss distributed governance deliverables, deliverables coming from the fund-free funding deliverables. And from the outset, I pushed for the adoption of a code of conduct and a charter, but unfortunately these lapsed as the teams called Holons increasingly focused on fund for deliverables within their Holons. And with Dan, from early April, I started work on research and development of governance tokenomics, which was great meeting Dan and working on very interesting cutting edge design of tokenomics and distributed governance. And in April, I also created a standards repository with another colleague in NFT DAO to liaise with international standards bodies, International NFT, the Internet Network Alliance on metadata standards, and so on. And then I also negotiated an open source concession with Gitbook. So we had an open source license on our Gitbook. But that was a very basic open source. That was just the minimum required. We still didn't have any code of conduct, and we still didn't have any contributions policy. And on the 30th of April, I started training people in GitHub because there wasn't really much skill in this open source collaborative framework. Didn't have many people with open source skills, unfortunately. And on the 29th of April, I proposed a test strategy. I'm a former program test manager. I've worked in investment banking and with consulting, and for the user acceptance testing of a token release, one of the token releases, which was signed off by everyone in the core cohort, and started to research as part of that, which they signed off on, OpenFi's initial IDO as a case study. I actually researched, Rick, your YouTube interview with the CEO of OpenFi, and also Big Pay's YouTube video, and I did a study of what happened when, and I did a risk model in order to inform our token release and to do user acceptance testing on that. Then on this May the 6th, around May the 6th, members of the governance team, Holon, were privately informed of an offer of an invite to what was called, I think at that time, an incubator organized by OpenFi. And that turned out to be just an admission process, really, where NFT DAO was selected as one of the 3 winners automatically and magically, who would be eligible for consulting to develop our business model further. So I posed a number of questions about this after, and I sort of changed my emphasis, my urgency in doing my research from doing a kind of a study for testing to more of a study of due diligence because we're obviously going to get involved. It's much more important. So I started posing questions to the core cohorts and through Troy and to Rich and the core team. Questions like what accommodation would NFT DAO give to members who didn't want to participate? And I received responses like, we're not entirely sure what this question is asking. NFT members are free agents, and it got very quite strange answers to the questions we're getting. And on 12th of May, I completed my OpenFi case study, which was published it to our Catalyst community, and I published it in NFT DAO's Discord server, and the response to it was enthusiastic by everyone, including Phillip, and everyone was very enthusiastic, apart from Rich. He wasn't very enthusiastic about it, as many were uninformed about OpenFi, and there was considerable confusion about the nature of the offer. So later, I had a meeting on the 14th of May. I was made aware of a partially completed, and this is the nature of the strange events that started happening, that suddenly information started to close down after the introduction of this finance offer. And so I just made aware of a partially completed core contributor survey, which proposed an equal share of reward regardless of contribution. And I mean, at this meeting, I also raised concerns about OpenFi. I was more concerned about their reputation of causing reputational damage to NFT DAO, not necessarily any capability they have. Anyway, around about the 18th of May, dissent over the core contributor survey prompted me to design a revised contribution survey, because we were working on a different approach in governance, which with an emphasis on surveying contributions first to overcome the difficulty of fairly apportioning rewards. And despite much support for this approach amongst everyone we were speaking to, we were unable to assess contributions or to carry out a contribution survey, which I had already. I had meetings and were able to do that first.
Okay. Hey, that's time. So if you could wrap up, although you're making your points well, so if you could bring them to closure, thank you.
Okay, yeah. So around 20th of May, internal relations deteriorated, and when we found out that most of the development team had left, and any trust in a neutral hand in the business ended at that point. And then I wrote to the on 24th of May, I wrote to Project Catalyst moderation team to express concerns that what had happened, my experiences, what happened, weren't reflected in their reporting process.
Okay, thank you, Stephen, and appreciate it. And then Rich, next, please. 5 minutes. So I'll go ahead and unmute, and it's what went well and what did not go so well.
Yep.
What were your efforts? Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. And thank you, Stephen and Dan, for being open, and Philip as well. So let me start with what the goal of NFT DAO was. In the beginning, it was really just a call for help by the Catalyst community saying, hey, we're doing these experiments and we would love to see more proposals and more input. And so that's really why I wrote that in the first place. I had no real designs. I actually wrote, all in all, about 45 different proposals or sensings that are inside of Catalyst. And this particular one, then that was over Fund 4, Fund 3, Fund 4, Fund 5. I did about 45 of these. And so this particular one was one that got people's attention. And you can just go back and look at the rest of them. But the idea was for NFT DAO to take the position of looking at all of these proposals that are around NFTs, and instead of funding, there were 42 of them, why don't we collaborate and bring them all together and fund one as an open source project? That was the sole intent. It was just an idea. And then people started liking the idea, as Dan had mentioned, enthusiasm abounded because it wasn't a bad idea. People collaborating and getting something done together. And immediately Troy and or Tyler joined first, and within an hour or so, Troy joined, and they helped me finish crafting the proposal. Then we had Michael Yagi join us as on the dev side a little bit later. But the proposal got put together basically by Troy, myself, and Tyler, and literally they did most of the restructuring of it from the idea of a DAO. I was not opposed to a DAO. It sounded like a good idea. Let's do it. But my real goal was, how can we build this framework that everybody could use in an open source manner? So that was my role in basically starting the proposal and kind of letting it take its own shape. So what went right with things like that was there was a lot of enthusiasm, but early on we started to see that people were wondering about, well, how are we going to measure who's doing what? And so even before we were funded, I came up with the idea of, let's build a contribution token so that we can measure who's doing what, and that way we'd be able to reward people. Then we did get funded, and from the standpoint of how are we going to build this thing, we had people coming in and out. A lot of developers had joined us early on, were there, but nobody actually took up the charge to make something until Michael Yagi got on board, and he agreed to do leadership over the development team. And then he built a team. One of the things that really went wrong is that these teams, although they were supposed to be the whole essence of Hellenic architectures are that they're autonomous yet cooperative. And so these autonomous holons, dev, marketing, and governance, the real glue is the communication. And so we emphasized that that was what was needed, is you got to communicate. But what happened instead was they more or less siloed, like Phillip said. I don't think I ever was invited to a Gov meeting. I don't know if I've ever shown up at a Gov meeting. I know I was never at a developer meeting. I did go to marketing meetings. Those were open, and mainly because my skill sets are around marketing anyway. But those things were being done independently and working on things independently. So there wasn't really a lot of good communication as it bubbled back up to these leaders, who then we had like a leadership whole on of our own, where we would discuss these issues. And then that stuff was supposed to get filtered back to the organizations. Like Stephen had mentioned, he showed up at a governance meeting and Troy brought something up. Well, it was something discussed at the core meeting that was supposed to get filtered down. So that's some of the things that went wrong, is communication. In the long and short of it, I wasn't even aware Stephen was working on the Occamfi proposal. In one of the core meetings, Tyler had known of it, but Stephen had asked him to keep it under wraps for some reason, because he wasn't finished with it. But when Tyler brought that up, I think we had already heard from Occamfi. Occam joined our Discord channel, and they asked for somebody to talk to. And since I was handling most of the business stuff, I talked to them. And they made a proposal. They were interested in what we're doing. They were excited about it. They're going to have a hackathon and want to know if we would join. We're going to have an accelerator, and we're interested in whether or not we'd be interested. And so these things got brought back to the core hold-on, and they decided, yeah, it's not going to hurt us to apply for these things. And so we did, unbeknownst to us that there were strong opinions around some of that stuff. So then it kind of inflamed. At the same time, because Occamfi was offering us a whole bunch of money, hey, how much money do you need to really get going and get this thing done? Michael took the position that, well, you know what, some of our devs could quit their jobs. He would quit his job, but never did get a real number of what it was going to take. And so some speculation about an IDO and how much an IDO could bring to the DAO caused people to think, wait a minute, what's my part in all of this? And so when money was introduced, it became a whole different problem set. And not everybody was interested in immediate rewards, but we were looking at this as a long-term thing. We're going to build something, give it to the community. We're going to benefit the community, number one, and number two, we'll all benefit with governance and the ability to keep shaping and moving this thing. So that was really where we were.
All right, that's time, and but I think you were kind of leading into the next part. So that everyone had 5 minutes to say their piece, maybe a little bit more than 5 minutes. That's fine. So let's take 10 minutes discussion and debate. There's a few things that came up, communications. Think about what was painful for you, and discuss and debate that however you guys see fit. What were the points of contention? Occamfi has been brought up a few times. Some of the viewers have mentioned that, and they said, what is Occamfi's role in this? So communications, funding, ownership of code, the use of open source, the introduction of Occamfi. So go ahead, guys. The floor is open. The floor is yours.
Now, in response to the Occamfi issue, I like to say this, that the Cardano Foundation themselves has shown that there's nothing nefarious going on amongst that particular entity. Now, that being said, it's just only conversations that we were having with Occamfi. Nothing was formulated because there was no one signing a contract. We were just listening on what they could provide for us to accelerate this whole entire process. Now, I know the people on this call right now have some opposing viewpoints, thinking that, I don't know what they're thinking, but they have their opinions about it, and I like to hear them. I personally don't see an issue with Occamfi or utilizing them, but we probably will not utilize them at this point, honestly, given the fact that how NFT DAO has matured since from now to then.
I don't think that Occamfi is the real issue. I mean, if there would be a proper communication and polling system in place, then we wouldn't have this discussion. The main root problem here is that the DAO name was used to create kind of a community to get funding, but all not really being a DAO and not even having the basic structures for calling it a DAO. So I think that's the root of the problem, that there was also backwards engineering of code through recorded videos, and that there was the OccamFi deal and placeholder proposal for why I think why do you ask for 50K if it's just to bring people together, or yeah, it's many things, but at the root of it all is to create something that looks like a DAO but is effectively not. And
So
that's
to that point, you know, I think we've acknowledged that it was a misnomer to call it NFT DAO, but from the very beginning, in our Genesis document, it mentions very clearly that we're an emerging DAO. The idea was not that we would on day one become a DAO, but we actually—
but emerging out of what? I mean, you cannot emerge out of nothing. There has to be something to emerge out of, you know?
Yeah, so if you let me—
Sorry.
In that document, we actually say what we're emerging out of, and that was the work that we do to create the boxcar. So out of the work that's actually done to create the boxcar should be emerging this DAO-like structure from communicating together and working together and figuring out what all of the pieces are. Granted, we probably could have started with a charter, and I know that the Gov colon was supposed to be working on some of that stuff, and it's unfortunate that like you had mentioned, a lot of that got started and moved along, but there were a lot of different people in there that nobody could agree on.
It was too late at that time.
Yeah.
So
a lot of people couldn't agree on what to do.
The real thing, or the honorable thing, would be to just take out the DAO name out of it and make it what it is, just the NFT marketplace framework. You know, I mean, that would help the community, that would make communications clearer, that would I think solve a lot of problems.
If I may, can I pick up on a couple of points?
Sure.
If I may pick up on a couple of points that Rich made regarding contribution. He said from the outset that he was for a contribution token, but I'm confused by this because in his report today, he says we cannot track contribution value. He says, quote, "We also did not assign a proper value on any piece of work before the assignments got started. Therefore, we cannot say exactly what these tasks are worth." And that rather confused me because I actually designed a contribution survey, which was ready to go, but then was sidelined. Secondly, on the open finance thing, I'm quite confused about this because he says also in this report that apparently I was compiling a report that he wasn't aware of. And that confuses me because he actually signed off on that, and I've got that evidence on the GitHub there of him saying, "Great strategy, Stephen, clever as a fox, spot on." And then we had Troy saying, Troy also saying to that, and saying it's a great strategy. And I actually, that's how I started on OpenFi. It's nothing to do at all with their finance averse. It was just to do with a test case of how we might do our token strategy.
Yeah, and also on the governance token contribution issue, where we discussed the model that we proposed. I think Rich is chiming in a couple of days after we created it with a hold on a minute, a lot of open questions here. And I was under the impression that it was the first time that he heard of it, but yeah, he might have also created it. I don't know.
No, yeah, so it was my idea, actually. I made the proposal to the core team in March, middle of March, that we created a contribution token. But as far as the details of all of that, I wasn't involved in the the gory details of how you guys were doing it. I trusted you guys to make that stuff happen.
It's not details, it's just a very basic draft of like, because I mean, anyone can have the idea, but it's about a little bit of execution of the idea that make it valuable, because ideas are like sand on the beach. I mean,
exactly.
free.
And we don't disagree there, right? But that was the whole thing started from an idea. I didn't formulate everything. I think everybody wants to be decentralized and wants to have a part, but then they expect leadership, right? And they expect to have one person to be accountable for everything. And it can't be like that. That's not a DAO either, right? So you've got to have the opportunity to allow people to do their work. And in getting into the details of how Stephen was doing what he was doing, the guy was a monster in terms of taking our videos and dissecting them and telling you which where a certain thing in the post was. It was crazy. It was great work, you know, a lot of good stuff. But I wasn't involved in each and every piece of those details, just like I wasn't involved in the development work. We tried to get a good understanding of what was going on in development, right? So we thought from the development standpoint, I gave only a couple of directions. The Ergo auction was one of the opportunities. Excuse me.
Sorry, I'm confused. Did you not sign off the user acceptance testing, Rich?
I don't recall.
Because the actually,
how did I sign off? Did I actually sign something or what?
Yes, you did. Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't remember signing anything.
Okay, then you must be imagining it.
Yeah, I mean, did I get something in the mail that said sign this? Or what are you saying? I signed off. Did I agree to it? Maybe. Along with everything else, if Troy was bringing something and he was okay with it, it was his game.
Okay, I posted a series of messages in Discord, which were then accepted and then recorded back onto a GitHub template, which can be found by the public on GitHub.
Well, if you think,
maybe we should
I'm happy to acknowledge it. I mean,
okay, so you acknowledge,
but consciously, I was not aware to any great degree that what you were working on was something around OccamFi, and the two things never came together in my head, right? Until such time as OccamFi dropped into our Discord, and we started talking about it at core, and then Tyler mentioned that, oh, Stephen is working on a report. That's when I made the connection that you were working on something with OccamFi, okay? Now on the developer side, we were looking for how to build an auction. So my suggestion was, let's get something done quickly. And Ergo Auctions was there. I talked to those guys. They said, yeah, it's open source. You can fork it and work from there. So that was my only direction to the development team. Hey, can we build something like Ergo Auctions, right? It's the code's there, and then to answer this one question about Quinn's concern that he was taped for reverse engineering.
So what about, I was talking about sign off, not, are you moving on to another subject now?
But what's the definition of signed off? Does that mean, hey, do you authorize this for usage, or do you acknowledge that it is okay? Is that what you're asking, Stephen? Because I was just asking about change of subject. His product was signed off on. So
yeah, I'm prepared to just accept what. I'd like to move on to.
I'm sorry, Stephen. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'd like to move on to the actual fund-free deliverables.
Okay.
Which I know that Rich, you're involved in these governance deliverables.
The fund-free deliverables?
Yeah, for governance, you're involved in them. Yeah.
In what way?
Well, you help complete them.
So I'm not sure what you're really asking here.
You're not sure. You're not sure. Are you saying
we have deliverables for marketing, we have deliverables for governance, we have deliverables for.
Yeah, let me help you. The deliverables for
So
governments.
I'm involved in all of that from a high level standpoint. Is that what you're asking?
Well, you seem to be written.
It's just not all governance that we were working on.
Okay, so but you seem to have written quite about a third of one of them. I mean, surely you know which one that is.
Which one?
You don't. Okay, the structure of the DAO framework.
Okay.
Yeah. Could you tell us about that?
Maybe you can point out. I've written a lot of stuff, Stephen. I'm not sure what you're alluding.
So you don't know what you wrote as a deliverable to Project Catalyst in the DAO structure framework.
I don't see where you're digging at. I'm just curious too. I want to know as well. Curious.
I just trying to figure out. I mean, I just want to it explain what this deliverable means, because you know it has you know, it's all about.
Are you talking about what's in the proposal?
No, I'm talking about the deliverable to the fund-free deliverable for the DAO structure framework, where there was a discussion with you about that.
Is it in? What document are you referring to?
I'm confused. I thought this is a deliverable to Project Catalyst. It's one of the deliverables. There's $20,000 here. So you're not aware of that at all. Is that what you're saying? And you're not aware that you wrote a third of it? So is there
I think he's asking. I'm curious though, but was a specific section that there's agreements towards? Because I'm trying to follow along what's going on as well.
Oh, there's a collaboration, a discussion with Rich Comcho, NFT DAO founder, and it takes up a third of it. So I presume that you would remember writing something that was a reporting requirement to Project Catalyst, wouldn't you? Something that up to $20,000 rests upon.
So, Stephen, I see what you're saying is deliverables have reporting requirements, right?
That's right. Yeah.
You say this is a deliverable, and it's here's the status. Here's how far we got.
That's
and
right.
What you're referring to is how is a DAO actually going to be structured? Not how is it today, but what is the deliverable of what the DAO looks like.
And that's one of the fund-free deliverables that we got funded for, and the whole of the deliverables was I think it's around 20,000. And I just want to know, Rich, explain what Rich did there, because he's obviously done a third of this deliverable, and I just want to explain his contribution there.
Where are you getting this from, Stephen? I mean, please explain.
A collaboration, a discussion with NFT DAO founder. You don't remember? There's, okay.
Maybe you can just post a link, and then
can we just post a link so we look at it? Yeah, so we understand.
Post the link. There's so much documentation. I don't know what you're even referring to.
I want to see it too.
Okay. Yeah. While you get that posted, I want to hit on a few viewer questions. Someone was interested in a comment from Boone Bergsma, where Boone described using the funding NFT DAO got from Catalyst would be the most helpful. The funding they got was meant to be used to build the ecosystem, not held and staked for gain. And Ken Adams had followed up on that, and he said, Rick, see Boone's question above. I second the question above about the plan to hold the funding versus paying the devs who got this project to the point it is at. I guess the question is, was there some kind of misunderstanding, or someone failed to pay out funding for the NFT DAO that got staked instead of paid out?
Well,
is that what happened?
The funding wasn't actually staked until very recently, so that's not an issue. But let me answer Stephen's question, because I think what he's referring to here is not something that I wrote. It's documents that I passed on that are written by other people about holonic technologies. So I contributed a bunch of articles as part of the process of helping people understand what holonics are, but I didn't write that document.
I'm glad you brought that up. So it says actually within the NFT DAO's founding team, who's been teaching holonic architecture for many years and adding to the academic literature on hierarchical approaches into the field. Can you give me a link to the academic literature?
There's nothing that says that I've added to literature.
It says it in the link I just posted.
It's not something I wrote.
Yeah, okay, so who is adding to the academic literature?
I don't. It
So
wasn't.
so let me be clear. You haven't added anything to the academic literature on holonic architecture. Okay,
No,
and has Troy added to anything on holonic architecture for academic literature?
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay,
No.
You don't know. And this is documented in a fund-free deliverable for $20,000, and you don't know, and you are espousing the holonic approach.
So Stephen, here's my experience with holonics. I've actually taught it to manufacturers around the world for 10 years. Right? I didn't write any academic papers.
Why does it say that they're here, quote, experience within the NFT DAO's founding team has included teaching holonic architecture for many years and, quote, adding to the academic literature on heterarchical approaches into this field of peer-driven production.
I didn't write that. I don't know where you came.
Okay, it's a quote from the documents that are sent to Project Catalyst to fulfill your funding requirements, Rich.
I didn't write it.
So you didn't write it, and it's
no, I didn't write it.
Okay, so why is that relevant that you didn't write it?
Why is it relevant to you that I did?
Well, how do you report to Project Catalyst for your funding? Do you go along there and meet with them and give them their reports?
We've only actually had 2 reports that we had to turn in. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, but this one says it's 2
or 3 reports at this point.
Okay. This one said it's 90% complete.
91% complete. Yeah, that report. Yeah.
90%.
Yeah, I was just reading that, and Stephen, I was wondering maybe if I could ask a question here, and this is to anyone. That part that Stephen just referred to also says will require expertise review and sign off by core contributors. Do you guys have a definition of sign off? What does it mean to sign off? Does it mean you actually electronically, digitally sign a document? I'm not trying to play semantics. I'm just trying to say, is there a communication gap where people say, I don't know if I agreed or disagreed with something by acknowledging that it exists, or did I actually say, I approve, that is the method we are delivering, that is the method we are going to employ? I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but Steve,
no, you're absolutely right.
What does sign off mean?
Exactly.
Because if it's a deliverable, like I used to sign off on deliverables, right? And it had to be like perfect, and other people had to sign off on it too.
You'd think that the
chief engineers had to sign off stuff, right? So how does the sign off work? Where do you sign? What do you sign?
Well, you'd think that the person who actually drafted or was responsible for drafting the deliverable would know if that's written. The text you're looking at is the documentation to be presented to Catalyst to achieve the funding ends. Okay, a third of it includes a conversation with Rich. Okay, you say a collaboration, a discussion with Rich Comco. So I reasonably thought that Rich would be aware of this, and also the sign off. It's not for me to explain the sign off. It claims to sign off in this document.
Yeah, and that's kind of where probably a lot of the communication issues arise, Stephen, because this DAO architecture doesn't revolve around me, right? I am not anything more than a person that came up with an idea. The rest of you are community. The rest of you have been contributing things. Where the sign off from me came from is asking the 4 people who were responsible for their areas, how far along are we in our particular areas? How far are you, Troy, in governance? And he came back with the percentage completion. How far are you along in marketing, Tyler? And he came back with that. And actually, it was Tyler that drew up the slide deck for determining how far everybody was in their deliverables.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it like this, but then don't call it a DAO. And that's all the community is asking.
I think we've covered that was a misnomer.
And yeah, but it's still there, and it's still on the proposals, and it's still misleading people.
Yeah, well,
I'll say this though. Let me chime in real quick. The misnomer it's not a misnomer at all, because of the fact that we are operating as an emerging DAO, because you just can't just run before you walk. We're still in the process of it, and the thing is that we have some news that we can't present right now. I like to, Rich won't let me, because there's a certain things that has happened in recent days that's pretty good, but I'll leave it at that. But
I'll just move.
We'll release it at a different time. But yes, yeah, Rich, go on.
Maybe let's move to the next questions.
Yeah, can I just move on to another point?
Yeah.
So I want to finish this thing because the community has a question about development, and
yeah.
And that really needs to be addressed. From a development perspective, Michael Yagi built his team. We didn't communicate with that team. We had a direction that we were supposed to go in, which was let's build this auction thing. We had an auction team that was working on that. And through the interactions between what can we get done, what we need to get done, the goals had changed from building a complete auction to just building something that would create a way to sell tickets. And that didn't include an auction feature. So we never really could get any clarity from engineering, even from the standpoint of block diagrams about what pieces are being built, right? So this conversation that we had, Michael Yagi did a great job finally getting the dev team to do a fireside chat. We did one fireside chat where the Akamfi conversation had come up already. And so this idea of maybe there's this big payday with an IDO and $5 million, and maybe there's this big chunk of money that'll pay all our salaries in the meantime. And so therefore the devs started thinking, wait a minute, I'm building really good code and I should be rewarded for this, and we want an equity stake. We tried to pay them money to finish the project, basing it on $120,000 salary for a dev based on how much work they've done already, etc. They didn't want the money, they wanted equity but we were not prepared.
It makes sense if they're from the community and wanting to be a part. I mean, that's why you start working. But
we were waiting for you guys in Gov to come up with the contribution token model and the Gov tokens so that we could present something, right? So,
yeah, but we mentioned time and a time that it's not possible if we cannot all sit down and agree on a charter and a goal and a vision. That's very simple. There was no time because the marketplace and the ticket sale was always prioritized higher, because it's always make some profit, make some money, and so on and so forth. And DAO is like a side pet project. If something comes out of that's nice. If not, so what? Yeah, better luck next time. That's what it felt all the time in the governance hold on.
Yeah, I wouldn't characterize it as a side pet project. I would characterize it as a long-term goal.
I got a question for you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Usually when I see problems with stuff, it's almost always communications. You can narrow it down to one of two things, either leadership or communications. What did you use to communicate? Did you have, hold on a second, what is it? What? Oh, is the stream still going out to YouTube? All right, let me know in the chat if you can still see the stream on YouTube. Just say something in the chat. Sorry, we've been going 25, almost 30 minutes on this discussion part. All right. So, what the question is, how did you communicate? What did you communicate with? Did you guys have this like smattering of things? Like some teams use Telegram, some teams use Discord, some teams use
Discord.
uh,
Yeah, we have a Discord server.
Did you have face-to-face meetings on Discord?
Yeah, we had town halls
Okay.
every Tuesday, or no, every Wednesday. After the Catalyst town hall, we would hold another town hall just for the DAO.
Okay.
And
then
there was like,
what about the team man for each holon? There's a leader, I assume.
Yep.
And that leader has delegated authority where the holon can work autonomously. Then whatever comes out of that holon, that one person who represents the holon can bring it back to a core team or a leadership team and report, hey, here's what we did, here's the status, here's our status report.
Exactly.
Something like that. Okay, so it sounds like the basic structure was there. It sounds like the features were there. So you had communication mechanisms in place. What was the most painful part of communicating? Because that's what I heard each of you at the beginning when each of you gave your piece, was communication seemed to be a common theme. What was missing? What was the painful part?
All right, so I believe the most painful part was when it came down to leadership trying to get other information from other holons, because everyone was siloed into their own particular holon and not really focused on the bigger picture at hand. So that was the main problem I saw from the beginning. And when I got in, because as I'm not sure if everybody knows that I recently came upon this position because I was voted in to do this, to take over Tyler's job. And the problem that I actually improved upon with amongst the other holons is like the communication flow, and to actually put information in relevant channels and then have leads go into other channels as well, as a way of just flowing in and out, and so we can hear other perspectives and hear other progress reports. Because the thing is, with this, what initially happened, because I don't know if there's such thing as a perfect project. We had a lot of issues in the beginning with how to structure. This is such a new thing, a DAO, and then Wyoming just passed some DAO laws recently. So it's like, wow, how do we actually operate as a DAO? We'll try to act as a DAO, as an emerging DAO.
Right. Okay.
Even though that, it's just kind of like a new thing for us. And the problem with this is that we're so focused as human beings, this centralized structure, that we tend to just focus on a lot of people and put a lot of trust in the person who might be the oldest or has maybe the most business experience in doing stuff similar to like business related technology stuff. But yes, what were you going to say, Rick?
Yeah. Okay. So that also leads to another question, and someone else asked it. Phil's Musings also asked the question in the chat about like who created the silos. So here's my question: if you have, let's say you have a developer team, and you have a marketing team, and I keep hearing you describe silos, but developers, they like to develop. They don't want to worry about marketing. They like to write code. They like to make things. Yeah. Like, I don't care about marketing. Let someone else take care of that. So these silos, are they by design? Like, are they there on purpose?
I can answer that.
It's actually okay to have them, but I'm sorry,
good.
Please.
Now I can elaborate.
Let me answer that.
Right.
The holonic architecture is an autonomous and yet cooperative, but it's a hierarchy, not a hierarchy, right? So a hierarchy is a hierarchical structure, right? But with the ability of anybody can communicate with anybody. You don't have to go up a chain of command. So by implementing a hierarchy, any of the holons, anybody in any holon could talk to anybody in any other holon about anything, right? So
that's called cross-functional communication.
Yeah, by design, holonic architecture is meant for communication. What the problem is people really didn't understand that they were free to talk to anybody about anything, and things got siloed by the way that people operated, right? So, like, I never went into a governance meeting because there was, I trusted that these guys are going to get their stuff done. and I'm going to hear about it from Troy that things are done. I never needed to be in a developer meeting, although I was interested to find out, what exactly are we building? But it wasn't necessary for me, because we would rely on Michael as things floated up to tell us where we are, right? And frankly, we thought we were well far along that by the end of May, we were going to be able to do a ticket sale.
Have any one of you ever tried to use Discord for actually like proper communication and like ship or centralizing information or channeling information or any kind of this stuff for workflows? It's not possible. Maybe if you have tons of bots and integrations and webhooks here and there, but NFT DAO had nothing of this. And to expect that a holonic architecture works by communication through Discord, that's, yeah, I don't know, words are missing. So
what was the greatest communication barrier?
Sorry, so Rick, can I just pick up on something that Philip said?
Yes, Steve.
If that's okay. Philip said he was voted in. Could we talk about the voting process by how he was voted in? There was a decision-making pathway, I believe, was designed by Troy. This was just a week or less than a week after all of us left governance. And that meant the core cohort met to vote on a decision-making pathway. And the problem statement for that vote read, quote, agile decision-making has been stymied by a design by committee approach in an attempt to please all parties. This has not worked, as NFT DAO resides between a startup and a collaborative community, an emergent DAO, and we need to find a new model. Then the core cohort voted two things. It voted one, to assign all decision-making to hold leads. So to make representational votes, but it wasn't said how the representatives arrived at. In effect, it granted the startup team leaders full authority. And secondly, it granted the business lead, Rich Comco, autonomy, either full authority to pursue his MUKN development option.
All right, so
were you using Agile?
This is how I came into this position. I was asked by Troy and a few other leads, and I believe we did a spot vote to get me in because people came together. I didn't ask for this position. They pretty much said, hey, can you please take over for this? And I said, yes, I will. So it's pretty much everybody came together and said yes within the core group. He said, hey, I need him in.
I'm not I'm not directing at you, Philip, of course.
Oh, it's all right. It's all right.
Yeah, no, I'm just talking about the process.
Yeah, understandable.
Yeah, so could I ask some questions about the process? Is that okay? Because it is now. Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you. First of all, it says, I mean, I can link in the process in the chat here. Maybe other people, I'm a bit rough at this, so let me just try that. Okay, that's the process there. Okay.
Right. Look through this, I suppose.
Okay. Now, first of all, I just want to ask a couple of questions. How was it decided the vote? It was an informal vote.
Which vote?
Right. This is a lot to read right now. For me,
well, were you at the meeting, Philip?
Yes, I was present at the meeting.
Okay.
When they came into.
So was Rich. Okay. Fine. Okay. So you don't know why the vote was informal?
Well, it's because we had recent people departing from the DAO, and we need people to fill in the spots. And we had people who were already existing within the core that needed to fill other positions. And then it was pretty much done. They might have talked amongst themselves, but then after that, we pretty much had me on, and they pretty much came to agreement that, hey, we would like you to. They asked me.
Okay. Who proposed the possibility that there was an option, a series of options in the voting, and one of them was centralized decision making with one leader, and someone who proposed it voted yes. Could you say who voted for that?
As in who approached me?
Who voted for, no, this is within the meeting. Within the meeting, it says in this document, I wasn't there, so you were there, and so was Rich.
Okay.
There was an option to vote. It says one. Centralized decision-making with one leader. Who proposed that and who voted yes to it?
Oh, yes. That was,
I believe Troy put the proposal together for all of those items.
let's look at this problem statement. Let me read this real quick. Okay, I remember this meeting now.
From a standpoint of
Oh, yeah. I remember this meeting now.
from a
Thank you. Thank you for bringing it up. I can answer this one. Who answered yes? I answered yes to that. That was not Rich, because Rich answers abstain to literally everything. I said yes for agile voting, given the fact that the way that things were moving quite slow. And since we were emerging DAO, we wanted to make sure we get the deliverables before we start branching off and actually putting the governance structure in place. So yes, that was me who actually voted that way.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Sorry, it's not Rich. Sorry, no, Philip. I'm a bit tired, I must admit.
Oh, it's all good, man.
Can I ask another question about the process? Because the process is very interesting to Catalyst community about, obviously, its governance and everything. Another question is how it says there's 3 yeses, 1 no, and 3 absentees. How can that be a tie?
They weren't absentees, those were abstentions.
Abstentions, right? So there's 3 yes, 1 no, and 3 abstentions, and that's a tie. Can you explain how that is a tie?
Let me look at this.
I mean, I wasn't there, so I don't understand. It just says it was a tie. But I'm not very. I mean, what's your maths like, Dan?
Was that for a decision? Like there was a decision made based on
Well,
1
you'd
yes,
have to,
3
you'd have to,
abstains, and 3 no's?
3 yeses, 1
3
no,
yeses and 1 no.
and 3 abstains. Or
And that was
something?
called a tie?
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't sound right.
Yeah, it doesn't sound right either. And obviously that was an incorrect way to put this document together.
Okay, well, so that didn't happen.
No, not from my recollection. But didn't we record this thing? I
It's
think we did.
recorded. It's recorded in.
Yeah.
I'm only reading. I wasn't there.
That's just a transcript. Yeah, but that's on.
Yeah, one of the guys transcribed it in tallied votes.
Oh, so does that mean you're going to have to revote then? Because it's obviously this is a public document and it must be wrong. So you're going to revote now. You have to do a vote again, yeah?
Well, Stephen, in terms of the whole process, I think we're pretty early in on our reforming. And, you know, we had one of our meetings today about that very thing. And so that'll be public and you can watch that.
Okay, so you're not.
Excuse me. Let me interrupt myself, please.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And so one of the things that we've done and that whole meeting talked about is making sure that all of these processes are very, very clear and that we do know exactly how things are coming together and so forth. So that particular first effort was noble to put together the proposal template. Troy did a good job putting the template together. We don't really have at that first meeting the best process, and so the meeting we had today was really about we need to nail down that whole process and get it really clear and exactly how everything is going to be handled. And because there's a lot of things that we have to vote on. And so rather than taking the stance that we're just going to do ad hoc voting, we want to be very clear on how that happens, that there's a proposal, and we want to model it after Catalyst. There's a proposal, there's a time for review, a time where people can state their positions one way or another, and then move into a voting cycle. So while that was, what they did at the first of the month, that's not really moving forward how we're going to handle this.
Okay. Are you saying that this decision-making process then is invalid?
I'm saying that decision-making process was a good start, and it was an effort to try to add some clarity to how we get to decisions.
And it didn't have any clarity.
It's going to evolve, and it's going to get better.
Okay, and so you don't have any autonomy to pursue an MUK development option then?
Oh, no. So
You don't, because this is an invalid vote, isn't it?
So in terms of that particular item, there's not autonomy. That's a
It actually says autonomy in the document.
yeah, that's not a characteristic I would use.
Okay, you wouldn't
What it
characterize
is-
the word autonomy as autonomy.
Yeah, well, you can niggle over that, but the spirit of what was intended there was that we needed to move forward with getting a idea of what's actually inside of the code. And so nobody was in disagreement that we should hire mutual knowledge, which is what I put forth and said, I think we should hire them to go and do a code review. That's the only thing that was voting on. Is it all right for Rich to go and make the decision to hire mutual knowledge to get this code review done? And that's what we did. And we got the code review. The code review is up on GitHub, and it told us that the code doesn't hang together, right? That the pieces were all made in separate, even within the developer community, they didn't work on sewing it all together. So it needs to be reworked.
Okay, so
That
you're
was
going
the
to hold
intent. I'm not really going to get into like I'm a librarian like you are, right? You're very, very good about the documentation and making sure that everything is.
but Rich, I'm not talking about documentation. I'm talking about a decision-making process where you voted.
Yeah, and then
You're
I just said what.
Could you not interrupt me, please?
Yeah, I
You
just said what
voted. Oh, you're allowed to. Are you allowed to interrupt me? But I'm not you. Is that right?
Stephen, hey, yeah, Rich, let Stephen go ahead so Stephen can get his point out here.
You voted yourself on full business autonomy in this.
No,
respect.
I didn't. I didn't vote.
It says it's in the document, so you don't have business autonomy. So you're not. You don't have autonomy.
I didn't
to pursue-
vote. I didn't vote. You're saying I voted. I didn't vote. I purposely have abstained from all voting. Purposely.
Okay. So everyone
don't
else.
characterize that I voted for myself.
Okay, it says okay. You didn't vote, but everyone voted you in. But you're saying that this vote is invalid.
No, I'm not saying it's invalid. I think it's very valid.
But you just said it was invalid.
No, I didn't say it was invalid. I said that
You said the whole
process-
decision-making process was a nice attempt, but it didn't work. That's what you said, something like
I
that.
didn't say it didn't work. I said it's a work in process. It could.
Okay, so if it's a work in process, how could it come to a decision on something like that?
We did.
Because it's its infancy, though. I think the problem is that there's an expectation of getting everything perfect and right the very first time you implement it. And the thing is that since we're an emerging DAO and we're still working through things, there's going to be some hiccups down the road. But overall, we've made a lot of progress and we've done a lot of good things so far. And there's
Sure you
more to
have.
come. Yes, we have. That's the thing. It's just,
Yeah,
there's,
how-
there's just
Sorry, it seems to me a vote on two things seems to be quite straightforward. I mean, forgive me. I mean, it's just one on two things.
the people within the core cohort are understanding what's going on. We have a better understanding, given the fact that we have a better communication.
Oh,
Because the communications, as of when originally, it wasn't very good. So we improved upon it.
If you've got such good communication, then why are you so confused about this vote?
Well, I was confused about it because I wasn't sure what your document you're referring to. And then you presented it to me. Then I looked at it and I remembered it. And that's why I was confused about.
And
Now
why
I
is-
see where it's now as the votings, we have had some
Why do you
agile
actually
voting. That's
care?
why I said.
Because you're not even involved anymore.
No,
I
I'm
know
not.
it's just like we're taking apart something and we're
Well-
trying to. I think this is it's a strange angle that you're taking, Stephen, because
Well,
we're
I'm
doing
sorry.
very good now. That's the question. There's a strange angle, as if like it's very like as if every
The
little
angle is
decision
to
that we're
protect the
making-
community. Sorry that I'm
Sorry,
interrupting,
sorry,
but this
sorry.
is not a personal vendetta, nothing. This is to protect the Catalyst funds in the community, period.
This is a significant decision.
Catalyst funds are exactly where they are.
And no one's stealing them.
Yeah,
no
but
one's
we're
taking
worrying
it.
about future funds, about people that see NFT DAO and think it's a good thing. You know, that's
It is a good thing.
It is a good thing.
That's
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
the thing. It's just there's difference depending on how we're approaching things. But the problem is that we have a community and we are building it organically, and we're doing it in a way that is very transparent, very, very transparent, because you can see all the videos that are out now, and we're approving. We're an emerging DAO. We just can't just magically become perfectly decentralized and everybody just works amongst each other. It takes some time. It takes time and effort. But yes.
Can I add to this, please? I want to kind of summarize this.
Okay.
You guys have been going a long time, 45 minutes, and what'll happen is you'll wear yourselves out, and then you won't feel satisfied when you're done. You're probably wearing yourselves out already. Kind of late on Steven's side of the world. So, to Steven's point, Steven has a good point. There was a pretty simple vote. Obviously, it got screwed up. Obviously, it has to get fixed. It sounds to me like that vote got botched. So, someone can just go back and redo it. Do a do-over, make sure it's done right. Those are important. Those are extremely important. Votes have to be done right.
We don't know if
voting gets screwed up, people lose trust. Yeah. And I think Phillip also has a good point, along with Rich. Phillip has a good point that it is new and experimental. So new and experimental is painful, understood. Eventually you get better, also understood. But also voting and counting 6 votes, I counted 6 with my fingers. Okay, please don't screw that up. Just fix that and move on, right? Because that is super important. Steven has an extremely good point. You can't be screwing up votes like that. It's too easy. Don't fuck up the easy stuff. It's too easy.
I agree with Steven. I want to say this real quick. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So there was one other question, but I do want to get to the last part where we just take 2 minutes to say, what do we want to see fixed moving forward? There was a question from the group, and they said, what happened about stealing code? Okay. Now, I know someone, I think it was the Ancient Kraken, posted some information on the Cardano forum that I'd read about.
Yeah, I can answer
that. Code was written and then used by somebody else or something like that.
No one used any code. Here's what happened: is all of our meetings are typically recorded, right? This happened in the second meeting that Yagi called. They called the meeting in Jitsi, which nobody uses, and so it never really worked. So then Phillip redid the meeting in his Zoom, and he has a limited time on his Zoom because it's not a paid account, right? So the meeting was going on. He failed to record it. The first piece in Jitsi wasn't recorded, and then by the time he ran out of time, we were still going. And so we opened the meeting again in my Zoom. People came into my Zoom, and I must not have started the recording right away, because typically we usually just record the whole thing. And I hit the record. The whole, if you actually watch the video, it is talking about how we are trying to figure out what it is that they're leaving us in code, right? And so Quinn was very open about what he's leaving and what he's not leaving. There's a piece that he built called that I didn't even know about until like a few days before that they called not smart contracts, but dumb contracts. And so it's a piece of code that supposedly works as an auction. And in that discussion, he says it's not something he even wants out there in the wild, right? But what we're trying to get to is what are we getting from them for the ticket sale? And so he was explaining how his piece isn't connected to Dimitri's piece yet, and that still has to be done. At the same time, we're asking them if they would reconsider staying, and New Mindflow was asking the same thing many, many times. We asked if they would consider staying with the project, and they weren't. So there was no stealing of code, right? I used the term reverse engineer in the discussion to New Mindflow because what we typically do is, and Tyler usually does this, is we take the video link that comes to me in Zoom, and I just email it to Tyler, and he takes care of posting it on YouTube or wherever. But he wasn't in that meeting, so I sent it to New Mindflow.
So who is New Mindflow? Is that a person or?
That's Rares and Anna Maria.
Okay, all right. So that's another team.
It's two people.
So I've got
a husband and wife.
So I've got a question here. Just listening, I'm not playing one side or the other. Is did a developer create a product that was delivered? Number one, did they get paid for it? Number two, and did it get sent to someone else? I think that's what they are asking here.
No, there's nothing got sent to anybody. It's sitting in the GitHub.
What about Mukin, the code review?
Yeah, Mutual Knowledge then went into there and did a code review on it.
Did they have it?
Sorry.
Did they have a? Did they have an NDA, or did they have some type of agreement with your team that if they look at your code, they're not going to reverse engineer it, or are they the ones who are reverse engineering it?
No, the reverse engineering is Quinn is saying, because when I sent the message to New Mindflow, I said something in there about him talking about it so that we can reverse engineer, right? And that basically meant was try to understand what it is that he built, right? That was what I was talking about.
But not okay. So
try
to understand what was built, but not recreate a copy of what was built. Is that what you're saying?
No. Yeah, I didn't even keep a copy of the video. I turned it over to the Mindflow.
Yeah.
Did a developer deliver product that was a deliverable and they got paid for it, or did someone not get paid?
The developers were supposed to finish the ticket app, and the ticket app would have been complete, and then we could run the tickets. And
But what about the code that got reviewed that they produced?
Hey, hold on. And so Mutual Knowledge went in to review the code and is unusable for us. We can't use it. So they didn't leave us with anything that we could turn on and operate.
And so it was not delivered to Catalyst and therefore does not receive funding. Do I understand that?
It was delivered to us.
Okay.
And it's unusable.
Okay. Well, is Mutual Knowledge the business that you've been voted full autonomy to pursue?
Mutual Knowledge is the makers of Glow, and they're the ones who we wrote up in our Fund 4 proposals. So when we wrote up Fund 3, we didn't have any real development skills that we needed depth-wise. So when we wrote up Fund 4, we decided we would work with Mutual Knowledge because if you remember the ocean, the pond, and the island, they're the ones that Charles mentions using the Glow language would help people move from the island, the pond to the island.
Yeah.
And so
can you get back to the question, answering the question?
So I think another one of the key questions here is that I'm trying to understand is, did the people getting paid to audit the code, did they get paid to audit the code? And did the developer?
We had an actual contract with them. That was what was voted, is that we could create a contract. We had no contract with anybody else. And so at this point,
the developers who were on this team, did they get paid?
They have not gotten paid yet. There was no contract with them. And some of them said they didn't want paid. Now, a month later, they came back and said they may want paid. But the only one.
But if they didn't get paid, then maybe it's an idea to give the funds back to Catalyst because you got the funds to pay the community.
Yeah, we actually voted on, that was another thing that we said. We want to give these funds back, and the community said, no, we don't want to give them back.
Yeah.
So the community, is that 6 people who voted? Is that the community?
Yeah, it's the people who voted. It's the 8 people who voted. Yeah.
And that's the community.
So people, something that I'm learning from this is, a lesson learned here is funds have to have a very clearly defined purpose. I know I'm preaching to the choir. I know you guys know this, but what I'm seeing here is the funds have to be clearly defined. And a developer can't just say, oh, give that back, right? You can't do that. It's going to where it's supposed to go. And then also, I'm not trying to preach, but I'm preaching, I guess.
No, you're absolutely right.
And on the flip side of that, if there are funds designated for a deliverable and that deliverable shows up, even if it's not all that great, it's still got to get paid out. And then you say, okay, next time around, if garbage shows up, you're not getting paid, right? It's got to meet some type of criteria is what I'm getting at. So if the deliverable meets the criteria of the deliverable, that has to get paid out. I'm assuming you guys are doing that. I don't know. I'm assuming you are.
Well,
but it sounds like there's a debate. It sounds like that's what people are arguing over as well.
Yeah, the plan is to pay that all out, but because of all of the issues, we're trying to make sure that we know exactly what we're doing, that the community knows exactly what we're doing with their funds. We're not taking the position of, okay, well, here, just take it. You know, we feel responsible for the community funds, not to throw them away, not to not deliver something. And so we're working through all of that with the
Can I ask? Sorry, can I just ask what community is that? The community, is that the NFT DAO community of 8 people, or is it the Catalyst community?
Right, it's the NFT DAO community right now.
8, so 8 people. Yeah, okay, right.
Yep.
Can I just ask a question, Rick, about the open source coding? Open source.
You want me to answer the rest of that?
Go on. Yep.
Okay. So from a voting perspective, it's the people in the DAO. From a greater perspective, we've been in contact with the community advisors on how to approach these things.
Okay.
Can I just ask Rick about the open source licensing of this code?
Yeah. What about it?
Can I noticed I'm not involved in this, but I am the GitHub maintainer. Oh, I was the GitHub maintainer until I was removed without notice when I posted my Cardano forum posters. But getting to the point, I'd like to talk about the open source licensing. I was looking at a merge I did, and there's in each code segment, it's licensed under Apache 2, but at the top, there's a change to copyright NFT DAO LCC. What does that mean?
LLC?
LC. Oh, no, I don't. What is it, Rich?
Did you say it's called NFT DAO LLC, as if it's a registered company?
Yeah, and it's copyright that under each code segment. And then
so the code is not open source, it's copyrighted.
No, it's got an Apache 2 license as well. Okay. But I think in these cases, I don't know. I think the copyright takes precedence. If you have an owner, like in the open source world, it's not all free. Oh, that would be really funny if everyone thought that, wouldn't it? No, people have to get paid, and for these things. So obviously, there's a copyright holder.
All of the code is under Apache license 2.0.
Okay, why is there a copyright notice for NFT DAO?
I don't know.
You don't know.
Oh, right. The one that was maintaining it. Did you put it there? I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of iffy because I get hit with copyright notices. I literally have copyright notices right now against my YouTube channel. And I was like, no, I paid for that. So I got to go fight YouTube and prove that I paid for this stuff. So you got to be careful.
Yeah.
If something is in an open source chunk overall, there's copyright pieces.
Copyright is with the creators. So for instance, the code that Quinn wrote, he owns the copyright to that.
Yeah, so why does it say at the head of every code statement, copyright, NFT DAO, and this? I'm sorry, I'm not an American, so I'm not really sure with the limited company. So is it? I don't. So.
Yeah,
An LLC is a formally registered company.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, sorry, Rick.
Yeah, that's okay. I just follow.
Yeah.
So Stephen, did you get your question answered, or are you just kind of putting that out there because it's an unanswered question that needs to be?
It's not. I just
why
don't.
is it copyright?
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
someone, maybe not someone here, but someone needs to, I guess, answer for that.
I'll take a look at that for sure.
Okay, good. Is that when you do the decision making?
Copyrighted to the people who wrote the code. Okay. So the stuff that Taylor did is. Yeah. Is his copyright.
It's there for everyone to see. It's on the GitHub, so you can just go there.
Yeah, that's probably an error of somebody.
Of course it is, yeah.
Happens all the time.
Well, someone needs to sort that out. That's important.
Like the same way as the voting system, I suppose you need to sort that out as well. Probably.
Yeah, the voting got to get sorted out. That is definitely on the list of must be sorted out things. Cannot make errors in that. There's So there's one last question here, and then let's get into the final part where we say, what do we want to see happen? There was a point brought up by someone named Phil's Musings. I don't know if Phil's Musings is on the team, but he posted in the YouTube chat and said, the code was not garbage. It was pulled after they found out it wasn't going to be paid. Is that a correct statement? And is Phil's musings on the team?
You don't know who that is. It's an anonymous account.
So here's how I understood it, right? And if you the video that is purported that we were reverse engineering Quinn's code was on Saturday 5/15. So that's a month ago, right? And in all of that, you can just watch it. You can see that it's very amicable. They're willing to turn over what code they have, except for this dumb contract piece. They weren't going to turn that over, right? And so that was amicably done, and we had plans on running that, and then we had identified 16 core contributors, Dan and Stephen in that group as well, who were going to get remunerated from the proceeds of all of that. And then the code needed to be reviewed to make sure it worked, because Michael he wasn't writing any code. He didn't know what was in it. And so we needed, and he is one that agreed that yes, we need to get it reviewed to make sure what we've got. So there was nothing like they pulled back the code that I know of, right? They agreed to turn over that code amicably, and actually at the point you can hear it inside the video. They weren't asking for remuneration for it, right? And so the goodwill part was we were going to remunerate them, and we still plan to do that. We just need to figure out how it all happens.
So you still plan to demonstrate goodwill?
Yeah, we still plan on actually sending you some ADA as well for all.
Yeah, I'm not really interested in the ADA, Rich. We were building a contribution first model.
Yeah, I know. So again, that's
hold on a second. Can I just speak?
People don't want any remuneration. Other people.
No, that's not what I said. That's not, the contribution first model doesn't mean you're not remunerated. It means you track contributions first and you apply value afterwards. In the middle of this process, we were interrupted. Troy took a unilateral decision to follow his top-down tokenomics approach. And that is the tokenomics approach that's now been pursued by NFT DAO, not the contribution first model, which doesn't imply you're not paid, but it just actually tracks contributions. And then hold on a second, you've done a lot of speaking. It tracks contributions, and then after contributions are tracked, and we were progressing on this, the remunerations are applied once you have the information. And now you're going down a new tokenomics model, which is completely top down, and you're voting in it with a community of 8 people.
We're not building a tokenomics.
It's in one of your fund free deliverables. I suppose you don't know about it because it's done by someone else, of course.
We're not building that at this time. There's no.
Why are you saying it's 90% complete in one of your fund free?
You guys said it was 90% complete.
No, Troy said it's 90%. Okay. It's not our model. It's recorded on GitHub that Troy took the decision to pursue the model over our model that we were building with Dan.
Okay, so you have an issue with what Troy did. Okay.
Yeah, I kind of get Stephen's point here. What he's saying is that people have to show, it's like charging hours on your time card, right?
Yeah.
You say, this is the level of effort I put in, this is the impact, then pay according to that.
That's what I asked for, yes.
All right, so it sounds like
yeah.
there's a model for accounting for contributions and the value of those contributions, right? Okay.
Can I address
That's
something
a good point.
about to close this?
Yeah. Let's.
Because I understand that you want to wrap this thing up. So could we just do our closing remarks right now? It's just for time constraints for people who are watching. So I'll just say mine first since we went in order like this.
There you
go. All right. So for instance, I'll say this. We are pretty much having to learn, and there's a lot of growing pains for what we did thus far. And we have learned a lot. We've heard a lot of feedback, positive and negative, and we're taking the negative and we're improving upon it. For instance, Stephen, like I said before earlier, Stephen brought up a good point about the accounting model. That meeting that we had today was based on people need to be held accountable for taking track of it. So we have actually in a process of appointing people, a person actually, to keep track of it. Who's really good at numbers, to keep track of all this relevant information when it comes down to votes, and is actually accurately able to document it and present it to the community, because that's a big issue that we've had. And I agree with it. I think that it's a huge problem. And back to with decision making, which Richard was talking about earlier. All right, so we had a problem with people not having enough time to get proper votes in. There's going to be a time period in place where there will be a series of things that for the core cohort to vote on. All of the people who will be able, who are currently part of the core, are going to have some time to answer and accurately put their vote in and input. So that's being done right now. And as you know, I've recently gotten this position. I'm trying to help workshop things to make this a more efficient and productive project. And it is becoming more and more productive. And the thing is, we're taking the negative and we're learning from it and we're improving upon it. And it's good to have this sort of feedback, because we don't want to live in this sort of feedback loop of just our own little silos. It's good to have outside input in, and so we can get better. And that's what we're doing right now. We're getting better and better. And there is a lot of good stuff they're doing. That's the thing. That's why I pretty much have to say there's a lot of positivity, despite, negative press and, random accounts calling me monkey and maybe some offensive emails that I won't go into that I've received. But, we're going to leave those at be. That's it. I don't know who's doing it, but I'm just going to leave on a positive note. We are continuing to push forward with it.
Okay. Thank you, Phillip. And just for the viewers who are watching, where we're at now is the last 2 minutes for each person to say, what would I like to see moving forward? Not what is the final solution. What would I like to see moving forward? So, Dan, would you like to go next, please, sir?
Yes, my pleasure. For example, if you really want to enumerate people that left the NFT DAOs, on me or Stephen, I would very much like to see that you give the funds back to the Catalyst community, because I view the NFT DAO experiment as failed. And I don't want to have any financial rewards for this. The experience I gained and the friendships I created there is more than enough remuneration. And what I would like to see is that the DAO, NFT DAO is, I don't know, maybe renamed Emerging DAO or something, but definitely to lose the image of that you are a DAO, because you're effectively not. It's something that maybe sometime in a couple of years can be called a DAO, but not now and not in the next couple of months. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. Stephen.
Yeah, I think NFT DAO doesn't exist anymore. It's just voted itself as a startup of 8 people, which is quite a massive community. And I think they should return their funds to Catalyst. I don't want any contributions from them. And I think they imposed the top-down contribution model, preempting the contribution first model, the contribution tracking model that me and Dan were developing. Yeah, so that's basically it. And also, I can't see how any voting process is valid at this point.
Okay, so if I could summarize that, you would like to see, even if you do depart, you would like to see a proper voting process. And
no, I think, sorry.
Proper accountability for time invested for remuneration. Just do things right, really, is what I'm hearing. Did I get that right?
Well, personally, I know people. There's a lot of work has gone into this project, Rick, and there's a lot of people deserve contribution. A lot of people deserve to have their contribution both recognised and not belittled, and also remunerated where people want remuneration. Personally, I don't want any, because I think the funds should be returned to Treasury, because it's out of scope of the original application now. It's no longer what it says it was.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Appreciate it. And Rich, 2 minutes, please. What would you like to see moving forward?
Well, this started really just as a very simple, let's help the experiment. right? And we wrote up a proposal based on the request from the community to help us work through these experiments. And that's really all it started as. However, as Dan had mentioned, people got excited about it, and people still are excited about it. And he even mentioned he got emotional about it. And a lot of people are emotional. And you can see just in this meeting how emotional people really are. They deeply had committed to doing something, and we want to honor that, right? We want to make sure that moving forward, these things are not lost, and that there are real lessons that are learned from this. We also want to make sure that, I personally don't need the funds, and I had offered to give them back, but the community feels like they want to keep going forward with this, and they want to get to an end where we actually deliver this framework. And so that's what we're going to do. And we're going to pull together the right people to make that happen. We're going to learn the lessons that we need to from making some false steps along the way. And at the end, you can determine whether or not we actually contributed something wonderful to the community or not. But the game is not over yet. We're still at this, and it will succeed.
All right. Thank you, Rich. I appreciate that. There was closing comments. I just want to let anyone who's watching the video, watching the replay, I'd like to thank all of you gentlemen for at least coming to the table and having a good discussion. It's difficult, but I appreciate you doing that. Thank you, Stephen, Phillip, Dan, and Rich. Thank you for at least bringing it to the table. And I wish you all the best moving forward here on all your future endeavors. You might be involved with other Project Catalyst, other projects out there. So good luck going forward. I hope you've learned something from this. And those of you that want to keep moving this ball down the field, good luck moving the ball down the field. And that's all I can say for that. Thanks for being here. Thanks, going to wrap up the podcast. All right. I'm going to wrap up the podcast. Thank you to the viewers who have been watching. I hope you learned something from this.
Thank you guys.
And it'll help make Project Catalyst better as a whole. At least we have some information. We have some experience. Some of it is painful experience, right? It's sometimes painful. So maybe others can learn from that and say, okay, this is what happened with NFT DAO. How can we make voting better? How can we make sure people get paid? How can we account for the money correctly, so that it's less painful? That way everyone can learn from this experiment, and everyone can learn from this experience. And whenever they launch projects on Catalyst, hopefully those projects will benefit from the pain and the experience that you guys brought with you, and the good things that you've learned as well here today. So I really have to thank you for sharing that with the Cardano community. You guys are awesome. Y'all have a great night. Get some rest. I know it's late, especially over on your side of the world, Stephen. It's getting pretty late, Dan, over on your side of the planet. Okay. I'm going to bring down the stream. You guys hang with me for a minute. I'm going to shut down the stream on YouTube.